Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we get the real thing, the association of Srila Prabhupada straight from his purports and his translation of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Lucky us. Okay, we got to go a little bit fast today because we got a program going over in the temple and the devotees want to get over there. So, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami wrote something about the Srimad-Bhagavatam, a prayer that's part of a bigger work, but he glorified the Bhagavatam in the sweetest way imaginable, and we're hearing it every day to help us to go deeper into our understanding, realization of the Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You always served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin hatini chochata kada hanamuncha gadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Narada is continuing his allegory, a story told by Prachinabarishat, the king, about himself. And what's happening now, King Puranjana, who in the allegory story is the king, is being attacked by time and old age and all the things that attack us before we leave the body. And because he was just enjoying his senses up until that time, he had no idea what was happening. And so he's terrified. Okay. Text 21. Chapter 28. Canto 4. King Puranjana continued worrying. After I pass from this world, how will my sons and daughters, who are now fully dependent on me, live and continue their lives? What? 21? 21. Isn't it?
Yes.
28, 21? Is that the right verse?
Yes.
Yes. King Puranjana continued worrying. After I pass from this world, how will my sons and daughters, who are now fully dependent upon me, live and continue their lives? Their position will be similar to that of passengers aboard a ship wrecked in the midst of the ocean. Purport. At the time of death, every living entity worries about what will happen to his wife and children. Similarly, a politician who also worries about what will happen to his country or his political party. Unless one is fully Krishna conscious, he has to accept a body in the next life according to his particular state of consciousness. Since Puranjana is thinking of his wife and children and is overly engrossed in thoughts of his wife, he will accept the body of a woman. Similarly, a politician or so-called nationalist who is inordinately attached to the land of his birth will certainly be reborn in the same land after ending his political career. One's next life will also be affected by the acts one performs during this life. Sometimes politicians act most sinfully for their own sense gratification. It is not unusual for a politician to kill the opposing party. Even though a politician may be allowed to take birth in his so-called homeland, he still has to undergo suffering due to his sinful activities in his previous life. This science of transmigration is completely unknown to modern scientists. So-called scientists do not like to bother with these things, because if they would at all consider this subtle subject matter and the problems of life, they would see that their future is very dark. Thus they try to avoid considering the future and continue committing all kinds of sinful activities in the name of social, political, and national necessity. Text 22. Although King Puranjana should not have lamented over the fate of his wife and children, he nonetheless did so due to his miserly intelligence. In the meantime, Yavanaraj, whose name was Fear itself, immediately drew near to arrest him. Purport. Foolish people do not know that every individual soul is responsible for his own actions and reactions in life. As long as a living entity in the form of a child or boy is innocent, it is the duty of the father and mother to lead him into a proper understanding of the values of life. When a child is grown, it should be left up to him to execute the duties of life properly. The parent, after his death, cannot help his child. A father may leave some estate for his children's immediate help, but he should not be overly absorbed in thoughts of how his family will survive after his death. This is the disease of the conditioned soul. Not only does he commit sinful activities for his own sense gratification, but he accumulates great wealth to leave behind, so that his children may also gorgeously arrange for sense gratification. In any case, everyone is afraid of death, and therefore death is called bhaya, or fear. Although King Puranjana was engaged in thinking of his wife and children, death did not wait for him. Death does not wait for any man. It will immediately carry out its duty. Since death must take away the living entity without hesitation, it is the ultimate God realization of the atheists who spoil their lives thinking of country, society, and relatives to the neglect of God consciousness. Wow, let's read that again. Since death must take away the living entity without hesitation, it is the ultimate God realization of the atheists who spoil their lives thinking of country, society, and relatives to the neglect of God consciousness. In other words, death is God to the atheists. In this verse, the word atad arhanam is very significant, for it means that one should not be overly engaged in welfare activities for one's family members, countrymen, society, and community. None of these will help a person to advance spiritually. Unfortunately, in present-day society, so-called educated men have no idea what spiritual progress is. Although they have the opportunity in the human form of life to make spiritual progress, they remain misers. They use their lives improperly and simply waste them thinking about the material welfare of their relatives, countrymen, society, and so on. One's actual duty is to learn how to conquer death. Lord Krishna states the process of conquering death in Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma chame dibyam evam yo veditat pataha chaktva deham punar janma naitimam iti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. After giving up this body, one who is fully Krishna conscious does not accept another material body, but returns home back to Godhead. Everyone should try to attain this perfection. Unfortunately, instead of doing so, people are absorbed in thoughts of society, friendship, love, and relatives. This Krishna consciousness movement, however, is educating people throughout the world and informing them how to conquer death. Harim vina na mritim taranti. One cannot conquer death without taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 23. When the Yavanas were taking King Puranjana away to their place, binding him like an animal, the king's followers became greatly aggrieved. While they lamented, they were forced to go along with him. Purport. When Yamaraj and his assistants take a living entity away to the place of judgment, the life air, and desires, being followers of a living entity, also go with him. This is confirmed in the Vedas. When the living entity is taken away or arrested by Yamaraj, tam utkramantam. Tat utkramantam. The life air also goes with him. Prano nutkramati. When the life air is gone, pranam anutkramantam. All the senses, sarve pranak, also go along. Anutkramanti. When the living entity and the life air are gone, the lump of matter produced of 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, is rejected and left behind. The living entity then goes to the court of judgment, and Yamaraj decides what kind of body is going to get next. This process is unknown to modern scientists. Every living entity is responsible for his activities in this life, and after death, he is taken to the court of Yamaraj, where it is decided what kind of body he will take next. Although the gross material body is left, the living entity and his desires, as well as the resultant reactions of his past activities, go on. It is Yamaraj who decides what kind of body one gets next, in accordance with one's past actions. Text 24. The serpent, who had already been arrested by the soldiers of Yavanaraj and was out of the city, began to follow his master along with the others. As soon as they all left the city, it was immediately dismantled and smashed to dust. So nice. So nice. Purport. But it's so nice. When the living entity is arrested, all his followers, namely the life air, the senses, and sense objects, immediately leave the lump of matter, the body. When the living entity and his companions leave, the body no longer works, but turns into basic material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. When a city attacked by enemies is vacated by its inhabitants, the enemy immediately takes advantage of that city and bombards it to smash the whole thing to dust. When we say, "Dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return," we refer to the body. When a city is attacked and bombarded by enemies, the citizens generally leave and the city ceased to exist. It is a foolish person who engages in improving the condition of a city without caring for the citizens or inhabitants. Similarly, a living entity who is not properly enlightened in spiritual knowledge simply takes care of the external body, not knowing that the spirit soul is the principal factor within the body. When one is advanced in spiritual knowledge, the spirit soul is saved from eternal transmigration. The Bhagavatam considers those who are attached to their bodies to be like cows and asses. Saeva Gokara. The cow is a very innocent animal, and the ass is a beast of burden. One who labors under the bodily conception simply works like an ass and does not know his self-interest. It is therefore said, Yasyat Mabudi Kunape Tridatuke Swadi Kalatradishu Bhoma Ijudihi Yatirta Buddhi Salile Nakarhichij Janesha Bigyeshu Saeva Gokaraha. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Bhagavatam 1084:13. Human civilization, devoid of Krishna consciousness, is simply a civilization of lower animals. Sometimes such a civilization may study the dead body and consider the brain or the heart. However, no part of the body is important unless the spirit soul is present. In a modern civilization of cows and asses, scientists try to search out some value in the brain or heart of a dead man. Text 25. When King Puranjana was being dragged with great force by the powerful Yavana out of his gross ignorance, he still could not remember his friend and well-wisher, the Supersoul. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Lord Krishna says, Bhoktadam Jagatapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. A person can be in full Krishna consciousness and become happy and satisfied if he knows but three things: that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the enjoyer of all benefits, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that he is the supreme friend of all living entities. If one does not know this and functions instead under the bodily conception, he is always harassed by the tribulations offered by material nature. In actuality, the Supreme Lord is sitting by the side of everyone. Ishvarak sarvabhutanam riddhisher junatishtati. Bhagavad Gita 18:61. The living entity and the Supersoul are sitting side by side in the same tree, but despite being harassed by the laws of material nature, the foolish living entity does not turn toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead for protection. However, he thinks that he is able to protect himself from the stringent laws of material nature. This, however, is not possible. The living entity must turn toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. and surrender unto Him. Only then will he be saved from the onslaught of the powerful Yavana or Yamaraj. The word Sakayam, friend, is very significant in this verse because God is eternally present beside the living entity. The Supreme Lord is also described as Suridam, ever well-wisher. The Supreme Lord is always a well-wisher, just like a father or mother. Despite all the offenses of a son, the father and mother are always the son's well-wisher. Similarly, despite all our offenses and defiance of the desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord will give us immediate relief from all hardships offered by material nature if we simply surrender unto Him. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mamiva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Unfortunately, due to our bad association and great attachment for sense gratification, we do not remember our best friend, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 26. That most unkind king, Puranjana, had killed many animals in various sacrifices. Now, taking advantage of this opportunity, all these animals began to pierce him with their horns. It was as though he were being cut to pieces by axes. Purport. Now all you have to do is go out on the street and they have all these knife problems. You know, you're reading about it? They have these knife attacks. Don't even have to leave your body. It's going on right here. Purport. Those who are very enthusiastic about killing animals in the name of religion or for food must await similar punishment after death. The word mangsha, meat, indicates that those animals whom we kill will be given an opportunity to kill us. Although in actuality no living entity is killed, the pains of being pierced by the horns of animals may be experienced after death. Hare Krishna, Haribo, Hare Krishna, welcome. Please have a seat. There's chairs over here. Just waiting for you. We're hearing a pretty heavy-duty section of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the allegorical story told by Narada Muni to Prachinabarishat, the story of Puranjana. And we're learning all the naked truths of material nature and how we should deal with it, with our mind and intelligence. It's good stuff.
Yes.
Good stuff. A little sobering, but good stuff, nonetheless. Okay, we'll start from the beginning of this purport. Those who are very enthusiastic about killing animals in the name of religion or for food must await similar punishment after death. The word mangsa, meat, indicates that those animals whom we kill will be given an opportunity to kill us. Although in actuality no living entity is killed, the pains of being pierced by the horns of animals will be experienced after death. Not knowing this, rascals unhesitatingly go on killing poor animals. So-called human civilization has opened many slaughterhouses for animals in the name of religion or food. Those who are a little religious kill animals in temples, mosques, or synagogues, and those who are most fallen maintain various slaughterhouses. Just as in civilized human society, the law is a life for a life, no living entity can encroach upon another living entity as far as the Supreme Lord is concerned. Everyone should be given freedom to act at the cost of the Supreme Father. The animal killing, either for religion or for food, is always condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 16:19, Lord Krishna says, Tan akram dvishatak kruran sangsari shu naradamam jipam yajasham ashubhan asuri shriva jonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. The animal killers, Dvishatak, envying other living entities, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are placed in darkness and cannot understand the theme and objective of life. This is further explained in the following verses. Text 27. Due to his contaminated association with women, a living entity like King Puranjana eternally suffers all the pangs of material existence and remains in the dark region of material life, bereft of all remembrance for many, many years. Purport. This is a description of material existence. Material existence is experienced when one becomes attached to a woman and forgets his real identity as the eternal servant of Krishna, Nashta Smriti. In this way, in one body after another, the living entity perpetually suffers the threefold miseries of material existence. To save human civilization from the darkness of ignorance, this movement was started. The main purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to enlighten the forgetful living entity and remind him of his original Krishna consciousness. In this way, the living entity can be saved from the catastrophe of ignorance, as well as bodily transmigration. As Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Anadi Karamapali, Pari Babanarva Jali, Taribari na Deki Upaya, E Vishaya Halahali, Diva Nishi Haya Jwale, Manakabu Sukha Nahibaya. Because of my past fruitive activities, I have now fallen into an ocean of nations. I cannot find any means to get out of this great ocean, which is indeed like an ocean of poison. We are trying to be happy through sense enjoyment, but actually that so-called enjoyment is like food that is too hot and causes burning in the heart. I feel a burning sensation constantly day and night, and thus my mind cannot find satisfaction. Material existence is always full of anxiety. People are always trying to find many ways to mitigate anxiety, but because they are not guided by a real leader, they try to forget material anxiety through drink and sex indulgence. Foolish people do not know that by attempting to escape anxiety by drink and sex, they simply increase their duration of material life. It is not possible to escape material anxiety in that way. The word pramada sangha dushita indicates that apart from all other contamination, if one simply remains attached to a woman, that single contamination, or by the way, if you're a woman, to a man. This is for Puranjana. He was a man, so he got this instruction. Same goes for women. The word pramada sangha dushita indicates that apart from all other contamination, if one simply remains attached to a woman, that single contamination will be sufficient to prolong one's miserable material existence. Consequently, in Vedic civilization, one is trained from the beginning to give attachment for women. The first stage of life is brahmachari, the second stage grihastha, the third stage vanaprastha, and the fourth stage sannyas. All these stages are devised to enable one to detach himself from the association of women. Text 28. King Puranjana gave up his body while remembering his wife, and consequently in his next life he became a beautiful and well-situated woman. He took his next birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha in the very house of the king. There you go. That's what getting too attached to your house will get you. Luckily, he got a human birth, but otherwise you'll get a birth as a cockroach or a rat or something in your own house. Purport. Since King Puranjana thought of his wife at the time of death, he attained the body of a woman in his next birth. This verifies the following verse in Bhagavad Gita 8:6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jajatyante kalevadam tam tam evaitikonteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. When a living entity is accustomed to think of a particular subject matter or become absorbed in a certain type of thought, he will think of that subject at the time of death. At the time of death, one will think of the subject that has occupied his life while he was awake, lightly sleeping or dreaming, or while he was deeply sleeping. After falling from the association of the Supreme Lord, the living entity thus transmigrates from one bodily form to another, according to nature's course, until he finally attains the human form. If he is absorbed in material thoughts and ignorant of spiritual life, and if he does not take shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who solves all questions of birth and death, he will become a woman in the next life, especially if he thinks of his wife. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:31:1, Karmana Daiva Netrena, a living entity acts piously and impiously, and sometimes in both ways. All actions are taken into account, and the living entity is offered a new body by his superiors. Although King Puranjana was overly attached to his wife, he nonetheless performed many pious, fruitive activities. Consequently, although he took the form of a woman, he was given a chance to be the daughter of a powerful king, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6:41. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvati shamaha suchinam shimatam gehe yogabrasto vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. If a person falls from the path of bhakti yoga, God realization, due to attachment to fruitive activity, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, he is given a chance to take birth in a high and rich family. The higher authorities appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus render justice to the living entity according to the living entity's desires. Although King Puranjana was overly absorbed in thoughts of his wife and thus became a woman, he took birth in the family of a king due to his previous pious activities. The conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. Narada Muni therefore advised Vyasadeva that one should take to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and abandon all ordinary occupational duties. This advice was also given by Lord Sri Krishna himself, by Lord Krishna himself. Although a devotee may fall from the path of spiritual consciousness, he will nonetheless attain a human body in the home of a devotee or a rich man. In this way one can resume his devotional service. Text 29. It was fixed that Vaidarbhi, daughter of King Vidarbha, was to be married to a very powerful man, Malayadwaj, an inhabitant of the Pandu country. After conquering over princes, he married the daughter of King Vidarbha. Purport. It is customary among Kshatriyas for a princess to be offered under certain conditions. For instance, Draupadi was offered in marriage to one who could pierce a fish with an arrow simply by seeing the reflection of that fish. Krishna married one of his queens after conquering 7 strong bulls. The Vedic system is for a daughter of a king to be offered under certain conditions. Vaidarbhi, the daughter of Vidarbha, was offered to a great devotee and powerful king. Since King Malayadwaj was both a powerful king and a great devotee, he fulfilled all the requirements. The name Malayadwaj signifies a great devotee who stands as firm as Malaya Hill, and through his propaganda makes other devotees similarly as firm. Such a Mahabhagavata can prevail over the opinions of all others. A strong devotee makes propaganda against all other spiritual conceptions, namely jnana, karma, and yoga. With his devotional flag unfurled, he always stands fast to conquer other conceptions of transcendental realization. Whenever there is an argument between a devotee and a non-devotee, the pure, strong devotee comes out victorious. The word pandya comes from the word panda, meaning knowledge. Unless one is highly learned, he cannot conquer non-devotional conceptions. The word para means transcendental, and pura means city. The Parapura is Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, and the word Jaya refers to one who can conquer. This means that a pure devotee who is strong in devotional service and who has conquered all non-devotional conceptions can also conquer the kingdom of God. In other words, one can conquer the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, only by rendering devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Ajita, meaning that no one can conquer him, but a devotee, by strong devotional service and sincere attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can easily conquer him. Lord Krishna is fear personified for everyone, but he voluntarily agreed to fear the stick of Madhya Yashoda. Krishna, God, cannot be conquered by anyone but his devotee. Such a devotee kindly married the daughter of King Vidarbha. Text 30. King Malayadwaj fathered one daughter who had very black eyes. He also had 7 sons, who later became rulers of that tract of land known as Dravida. That's South India. Thus there were 7 kings in that land. Purport. King Malayadwaj was a great devotee, and after he married the daughter of King Vidarbha, he gave her one nice daughter whose eyes were black. Figuratively, this means that the daughter of King Malayadwaj was also bestowed with devotional service, for her eyes were always fixed on Krishna. A devotee has no vision in his life other than Krishna. The 7 sons are the 7 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, offering worship, offering prayers, rendering transcendental loving service, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Of the 9 types of devotional service, only 7 were mentioned or immediately given. The balance, friendship, and surrendering everything, were to be developed later. In other words, devotional service is divided into 2 categories, namely Vidhi Marg and Rag Marg. The process of becoming friends with the Lord and sacrificing everything for Him belongs to the category of Rag Marg, the stage of developed devotional service. For the neophyte, the important processes are those of hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, remembering Krishna, worshipping the deity in the temple, offering prayers, and always engaging in the service of the Lord and worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. The word yaviyasa indicates that these processes are very powerful. After a devotee engages in the processes of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, and is able to secure these processes, he can later become a devotee capable of rendering spontaneous devotional service, namely Sakyam and Atma Nivedanam. Generally, the great acharyas who preach devotional service all over the world belong to the category of Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. A neophyte devotee cannot actually become a preacher. The neophyte is advised to execute devotional service in the 7 other fields, Shravanam, Kirtanam, etc. If one can successfully execute the preliminary 7 items, he can in the future be situated on the platform of Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. The specific mention of Dravida Desh refers to the 5 Dravida Deshas in South India. All are very strong in rendering the preliminary devotional processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam. Some acharyas, like Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, also came from Dravida Desh and became great preachers. They were all situated on the platform of Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. Text 31. My dear King Prachinibarishat, the sons of Malayadwaj gave birth to many thousands and thousands of sons, and all of these have been protecting the entire world up to the end of one Manu's lifespan, and even afterward. Purport. There are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. A Manvantara, the lifespan of one Manu, is given as 71 multiplied by 4,320,000 years. After one such Manu passes on, another Manu begins his lifespan. In this way, the life cycle of the universe is going on. As one Manu follows another, the cult of Krishna consciousness is being imparted, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasute Yogam Proktavan Ahamavyayam Vivaswan Manabe Praha Manor Ikshwa Kave Bravid. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshwaku. Vivaswan, the sun god, imparted Bhagavad Gita to one Manu, and this Manu imparted it to his son, who imparted it to yet another Manu. In this way, the propagation of Krishna consciousness is never stopped. No one should think that this Krishna consciousness movement is a new movement. As confirmed by Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is a very, very old movement, for it has been passed down from one Manu to another. Among Vaishnavas, there may be some difference of opinion due to everyone's personal identity. But despite all personal differences, the cult of Krishna consciousness must go on. We can see that under the instructions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Goswami Maharaj, began preaching the Krishna consciousness movement in an organized way within the past 100 years. The disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj are all God brothers, and although there are some differences of opinion, and although we are not acting conjointly, every one of us is spreading this Krishna consciousness movement according to his own capacity and producing many disciples to spread it all over the world. As far as we are concerned, we have already started the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and many thousands of Europeans and Americans have joined this movement. Indeed, it is spreading like wildfire. The cult of Krishna consciousness, based on the 9 principles of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, will never be stopped. It will go on without distinction of caste, creed, color, or country. No one can check it. The word bhokshate is very important in this verse. Just as a king gives protection to his citizens. These devotees, following the principles of devotional service, will give protection to all the people of the world. The people of the world are very much harassed by so-called religious principled swamis, yogis, karmis, and jnanis, but none of these can show the right way to become elevated to the spiritual platform. There are primarily 4 parties spreading devotional service all over the universe. These are the Ramanuja Sampradaya, the Madhva Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, and the Nimbarka Sampradaya. The Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, in particular, comes from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All these devotees are spreading this Krishna consciousness movement very widely and giving protection to innocent people who were being so much embarrassed by pseudo-avatars, swamis, yogis, and others. Text 32. The great sage, named Agastya, married the firstborn daughter of Malayadvaj, the avowed devotee of Lord Krishna. From her one son was born, whose name was Dritachyuta, and from him another son was born, whose name was Idmavaha. Purport. The name Agastya Muni is very significant. Agastya Muni represents the mind. The word Agastya indicates that the senses do not act independently, and the word Muni means mind. The mind is the center of all the senses, and thus the senses cannot work independent of the mind. When the mind takes to the cult of bhakti, it engages in devotional service. The cult of bhakti, Bhakti Lata, is the first daughter of Malayadvaj, and as previously described, her eyes are always upon Krishna. Asitikshanam. One cannot render bhakti to any demigod. Bhakti can be rendered only to Vishnu, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Thinking the absolute truth to be without form, the Mayavadis say that the word bhakti can apply to any form of worship. If this were the case, a devotee could imagine any demigod or any godly form and worship it. It's getting warm in here, too warm actually. Could you see if you could turn on the air condition next door? Thank you. This, however, is not the real fact. The real fact is that bhakti can be applied only to Lord Vishnu and his expansions. Therefore, Bhakti Lata is Dridavrata, the great vow, for when the mind is completely engaged in devotional service, the mind does not fall down. If one tries to advance by other means, by karma yoga or jnana yoga, one will fall down. But if one is fixed in bhakti, he never falls down. Thus, from Bhakti Lata, the son, Dritachyuta, is born, and from Dritachyuta, the next son, Idmavaha, is born. The word Idmavaha refers to one who carries wood for burning in a sacrifice when approaching a spiritual master. The point is that Bhakti Lata, the cult of devotion, fixes one in his spiritual position. One so fixed never comes down, and he begets children who are strict followers of the Shastric injunctions. As said in the Vedas, Tadvijnanartam sagarun evabhigachet samitpani shotyam brahmanishtam. In the line of devotional service, those who are initiated are strict followers of the Vedic scriptural injunctions. Text 33. After this, the great saintly king Malayadvaj divided his entire kingdom among his sons, Then, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to a solitary place known as Kulachala. Purport. Malayadvaj, the great king, was certainly a Mahabhagavat, topmost devotee. By executing devotional service, he begot many sons and disciples for propagating the bhakti cult, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Actually, the entire world should be divided among such disciples. Everyone should be engaged in preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. In other words, when disciples are grown up and are able to preach, the spiritual master should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjan Bhajan. This means sitting silently in a solitary place and executing devotional service. This Nirjan Bhajan, which is the silent worship of the Supreme Lord, is not possible for a neophyte devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur never advised a neophyte devotee to go to a solitary place to engage in devotional service. Indeed, he has written a song in this connection. Dushtamana tumi kisirai Vaishnava patishtara tari nirja niragari tava harinama kevala kaitava. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But this is all cheating. Thus, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur advocated that every devotee, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, preach the bhakti cult, Krishna consciousness all over the world. Only when one is mature can he sit in a solitary place and retire from preaching all over the world. Following this example, the devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness now render service as preachers in various parts of the world. Now they can allow the spiritual master, whoa, this is 1970, this is fourth canto, that means 1974. He started talking about this. He was already talking about this when I joined in 72. Here's Prabhupada talking about himself. Now they can allow the spiritual master to retire from active preaching work. In the last stage of the spiritual master's life, the devotees of the spiritual master should take preaching activities into their own hands. In this way, the spiritual master could sit down in a solitary place and render Nirjan Bhajan. Of course, he said that, but he preached right until the practically last moment, telling us he wanted to die with his boots on, something like that, you know. Text 34. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malayadvaj departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness, despite family and children. Purport. Just as in the Vanaprastha stage, the wife follows the husband, similarly, when the spiritual master retires for Nirjan Bhajana, some of his advanced devotees follow him and engage in his personal service. In other words, those who are very fond of family life should come forward in the service of the spiritual master and abandon so-called happiness afforded by society, friendship, and love. A verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Guruvashtaka is significant in this regard. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. A disciple should always remember that by serving the spiritual master, he can easily advance in Krishna consciousness. All these scriptures recommend that it is by pleasing the spiritual master and serving him directly that one can attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service. The word madhirekshana is also significant in this verse. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained in his Sandarbha that the word madhira means intoxicating. If one's eyes become intoxicated upon seeing the deity, he may be called madhirekshana. Queen Vaidarbhi's eyes were very enchanting, just as one's eyes are madhirakshana when engaged in seeing the temple deity. Unless one is an advanced devotee, he cannot fix his eyes on the deity in the temple. We'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Almost an hour. Direct nectar from Srila Prabhupada's lotus lips. Okay, this is the section. For a few minutes, we'll have what we call open mic. This is the open mic section. Anything that's stuck in your mind during the reading, if you were awake long enough to hear it and remember it, please reflect on it, or if you want to have some subject matter discussed more, make comments, or whatever. This is your chance. Somebody's going to break the ice. Once the ice is broken, it'll be good. Everybody will take off. Heavy stuff. That was a heavy session.
It was. I guess I could
Okay,
start.
Honest John. Honest John is going to start us off.
I just was going to read a comment, just something that he got. If one tries to advance by other means, by karma yoga, jnana yoga, one will fall down. But if one is fixed in bhakti, he never falls down. So that's just, that was a...
So what's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference between jnana and karma and bhakti?
Bhakti is devotional service.
Put
right?
this underneath. Put this underneath. There you go. That gives us a little
I feel like I'm being quizzed here. Pass the test. It's just simply loving devotional service to the Lord, right? And that's it.
That's the positive way of saying it. The negative way of saying it, but you can repeat it to the mic because you're honest, John.
Okay. The
The
negative.
positive way of saying it is that we don't have any desire for ourselves.
Okay.
Karma means we want some fruit for ourselves. Repeat it.
Karma means we want fruit for ourselves,
Yeah. And jnana means we want mental enjoyment
and jnana means we want mental enjoyment
for ourselves.
for ourselves.
The bhakti means we don't want any enjoyment from ourselves. We only want the enjoyment of Krishna senses.
No easy task.
He is honest.
No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. But here's the thing. As we've been hearing for a couple of chapters now, practically every purport, and it's designed like that, maybe to make us feel a little, squirming in our seats a little bit, in order to make sure that we understand the subject thoroughly. But the fact is that when we do bhakti, and when our intention in doing our service, and that means that the service is done under the direction of authority, approved, guided by authority, and it's done in a way that's satisfying to Krishna's senses, which he explains to us all through the scriptures, what he likes and what he doesn't like. Then we actually enjoy. But as long as we're trying to get something for ourselves, mentally or physically, then we have to take another body, and our suffering continues, life after life after life. So this is the great gift that Lord Chaitanya gave us in the Prabhupada. Continue.
If you, in your quest for devotional service, I kind of had a little realization, you don't feel like, oh, this is not enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not. This is not good enough, or but it's I'm not worthy, or you get this feeling, and it's like, okay, that's the way you're supposed to feel. Get used to it. That's good. Let you feel like that is a good thing, and just live with that. And it's you're supposed to feel like that.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe correct.
No, it's true. The reason I said maybe was that if one feels like that, kind of dissatisfaction, or like unqualified, or not good enough to satisfy Krishna or whatever, that is a natural result of pure devotional service. But the difference between that and false humility, in which we think we're not good enough and we're still thinking about our own selves, it's not coming as a result of humility that comes from approaching Krishna. It's coming from false sense of our own insecurity or false ego. Then we become depressed and we become less capable of doing things for Krishna or for anyone. But if a person has dainya, which is actual development of humility, dainya is a very special word in Sanskrit. It means utter humility. And it is the prerequisite, the essential prerequisite for achieving love of Krishna. And Sanatana Goswami, I'll read it. Yeah, I got a few minutes. Sanatana Goswami, in the 5th chapter, how do I go here? 221. Oh, 221. This is Sanatana Goswami's description of the humility that makes us eligible to attract Krishna, to see Krishna face to face. Because Krishna doesn't want to see somebody's face as down in the mouth. Oh, I'm bad, I'm so bad, I can't do anything. Oh. What does Krishna want to see a face like that for? Right? So that's not the result of real humility. Oh, wait. I thought I knew exactly where this was, but 2, 3. This should be chapter 5. It is chapter 5. Yes, I am coming. I'm coming. Stick around, folks. I'll be right there. Be patient. One develops that love. 19. 20. That loving devotional service, this is Sanatana Goswami in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, part 2, chapter 5, starting with text 221. Just in case anybody's interested to take a note and wants to look it up later on. Okay. All right. That loving devotional service is far different from disciplines such as karma, jnana, and yoga. At every stage, it is decorated by indifference to them, and its root is dainya, utter humility. Commentary. The question here is whether prescribed duties and other methods of purification should be continued along with devotional service. Should one keep on with karma, the following of varnashram regulations, or jnana, the cultivating of discrimination between spirit and matter? What about the eightfold practice of yoga and meditation and samadhi? And what about renunciation, chanting mantras, and other disciplines? Here Narada answers that although these disciplines, starting with karma, may all assist in the sadhana of love of God, only in the very early stages of devotional practice are they of much use. Once sadhana bhakti has yielded its fruit, raganuga bhakti, which means spontaneous devotion, and especially once prema has appeared, the fruit of raganuga bhakti, there's no longer any place in a devotee's life for those other practices. So then he goes on to say in the next verse, Bhakti Yoga in all its phases of practice and achievement in this life and the next is always decorated with the ornament of indifference to material desires. This holds true whether bhakti is performed internally with the subtle body or externally with one's physical body and senses, in the body's external possessions. When one allows secondary means and goals to become prominent, one deviates from bhakti. The most essential support and a candidate for pure bhakti must always take help from it is utter humility. So as you go forward in devotional life and you get closer to Krishna, closer to Krishna means when you begin to get attached to Krishna, when you like Krishna, when you're going forward toward Krishna, then you see yourself different. You see the difference between you and Krishna more clearly. And that's real humility. Not just because I tried to do something I couldn't and I get depressed because I'm no good. Wise men define dainya. This is the next verse. Wise men define dainya as the state in which one always thinks oneself exceptionally incapable and low, even when endowed with all excellences. Shall I repeat that again? Huh?
Yes.
No, you don't want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't sound very enthusiastic. Oh, all right. Wise men define dainya as the state in which one always thinks oneself exceptionally incapable and low, even when endowed with all excellences. Commentary. Narada's own definition of dainya distinguishes his use of the word from other possible meanings, such as poverty. One can feel low when one's in poverty. Becoming selfless by not accepting charity, and being free from egotism. Someone might say that the quality of thinking oneself very fallen may also be seen in persons who are simply lazy. Or those who abandon auspicious work, or indulge in sinful acts. Therefore, Narada specifies that one who actually has dainya is endowed with all good qualities. For instance, he is free of false ego, he has a healthy fear of material life, very important. Furthermore, although Narada doesn't say so, transcendental dainya is a state of extreme agitation that can lead to tears and other ecstatic outbreaks or symptoms. Next verse. An intelligent person should carefully cultivate speech, behavior, and thinking that fix him in utter humility. And anything that stands in the way of it, he should avoid. Dainya at its most exalted comes forth when prema, pure love of God, reaches its full maturity, as it did in the women of Gokula when they were separated from Krishna. Okay, one more, just the rest of this, then I'll stop. This is too much nice. Commentary. Ordinary dainya can be developed by human effort. You know, someone insults you. Yes, you're very nice. Thank you very much. But there is also a type of dainya beyond the mundane that comes from receiving the Supreme Lord's favor. The word tu in this verse contrasts these distinct kinds of dainya. Almost everyone in the material world is separated from Krishna. But most people never experience dainya because they have no prema. Therefore, they can never become free from suffering and attain true happiness. To achieve transcendental dainya, one must learn to love Krishna in the mood felt by the gopis led by Sri Radha when Krishna left them to go to Mathura. So then the next verse is very interesting. This is going to be the end. I'm already over I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. I'm going to get cursed by all the devotees. Hare Krishna. Dainya. When dainya fully matures, prema unfolds without limit. And so we see that dainya and prema acting in a relationship in which each is both cause and effect. In other words, you can't have prema without dainya, and you can't be said to have dainya without prema. They're both the same. So this level of humility isn't something that you can just put on. Stand at the back of the room because whatever reason. If prema is supposed to be the final result of all devotional endeavors, how can dainya be a consequence of prema? Are you following? Who's following? Repeat what I just said. Just the idea. You may not get all the words right. If prema is supposed to be the final result of devotional, in other words, the result of the goal of devotional efforts is prema, then how can dainya be a consequence of prema? You would think that dainya would come before prema. But here it's saying that dainya comes after prema. Two for one deal. Double jeopardy. Double your fun. And now he explains it. Yes, prema is the final goal, but dainya is not altogether different from prema. Dainya is an integral component of prema, and both foster one another. It is a misunderstanding to think that because there is always another level of perfection to achieve, one can never reach the supreme goal of life. See, the impersonalists say there's a goal of life, you merge into God, and that's it. It's finished. What the progressive development of prema shows is not that there is no goal, but that in spiritual life there is endless variety. Endless what? Variety is the spice of Therefore, you can only be happy when you get prema. And it's not wrong that there's no end to it. It just means that there's variety and unending, unfolding of higher and higher happiness and higher pleasure. And with that, I'm going to stop. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Narada Muni ki jai. That is Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Part 2, Chapter 5, starting with text 221.
Spontaneous devotional